Hi, good morning or good afternoon, depending upon where you live. This is Alyssa Briggs talking. I'm the director of the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice, and so happy to welcome all of you to today's webinar, where we hope to be able to answer questions that you have about the application process for becoming a member of the STEM Learning Ecosystems Community of Practice. Few housekeeping issues that I wanted to touch on before we go over the agenda today. All of you that have joined the call today, and I see that that number is growing by the second here, are in listen-only mode at this point. We have a mechanism for you, you're muted. We have a mechanism for you to submit questions shortly, and we'll let you know when that time is with us. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will share with you a link to that recording so that you can listen again if you want, or share it with others who were not able to join us. So today we are going to basically just do a quick walkthrough again about the application process. And as a reminder, this is the second of the 2 webinars that we've held for people, for communities who are interested in becoming the newest member of our Cohort 5 of the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice. So we will walk through that quickly, and then we're going to reserve most of our time for a Q&A session with 2 STEM leaders who have joined the call today. So I would like to now introduce everyone who's on the call today. My colleague and friend, Veronica Gonzalez, who is the Associate Director of the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice. Jeremy Shore may be listening in from time to time. He is the Director of Digital Innovation and Early Learning. And then we're super excited today to have with us Hetty Clark, who is the lead of STEM Scenic in North Carolina, and also Stephanie Schwab, who is the lead of the Pennsylvania Seed STEM ecosystem. So let's dive right in to the timeline. Just a really quick review. Everyone who's on the call today has already submitted your online interest form. We have responded with instructions for how to begin the application process. That deadline, again, for the application process, where they are due to the online portal, is February 28th, 2019. Before we advance to the next slide, I neglected to mention a very important person who's on the call today, and that's Michelle Freeman from the Samueli Foundation. Michelle is the person with whom many of you have been communicating, and Michelle manages the application process for the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice, and does so much else as well. So thank you, Michelle, for joining us today. So let's keep advancing. Okay, again, kind of a look at the timeline. The application closes February 28th. In early March, we will announce the selection of the communities that have been invited to become members of the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice. And then in New Orleans, at the next convening of the whole community of practice, there will be an orientation session for you. And we will also go over something that we call it's a little bit of a clunky name, the Ecosystem Indicator Tool. We will work that through with you and help you to get the most out of that pretty important tool. We anticipate that we will not be able to accept all of the people of the communities who have applied to be part of this new Cohort 5, but don't fear, because the application will open again May 1st and follow with, again, 2 webinars and then an orientation at the fall 2019 convening. And we'll keep going. I think probably everyone is aware of the interest form, of course, and then has instructions for how to continue with the online portal and the application. And we'll keep going here, Veronica. So generally, the application process, and I think that we've talked a little bit about this in the past, is designed to be first and foremost collaborative in nature. That is the cornerstone of what we do, what we believe, how we operate. That collaboration is absolutely the key to successful ecosystems and, most importantly, successful work that's going to make a difference in students' lives and in the communities where we all live and work. The application process also is really intended to be an important exercise for you and for your partners to help you get a sense of where you all are in your work together, in your shared vision and your goals. And most of all, we are looking for communities and ecosystems that have a level of readiness to join this very robust, very highly functioning community of practice. Through the application, our goal is fundamentally to understand your community's interest and to be able to arrive at an assessment of your level of readiness for joining this ecosystem. So we do encourage communities of all stages of ecosystem development to apply, and we pledge to give you a fair and honest assessment of where you are, and we will be communicating to those who are accepted as well as to those who are not accepted with some thoughts for how you might get your community or your ecosystem a little bit more ready to join the community of practice. We'll keep going. We've talked about who can apply, who is eligible to apply on behalf of a community. If there are specific questions surrounding that, I'm happy to dive into those questions as the webinar continues. Mainly the lead applicant should be determined by the community-based ecosystem. And we feel strongly that there should only be one application per community. Again, collaboration is the cornerstone of what we do, so we really want communities who are collaborating. What is a community? At a minimum, it's formal pre-K to 12, it's out of school, it's STEM-based organizations, it's business, it's higher ed, it's regional and local funders, it's government, it's family-based organizations, and there are more criteria there that you can certainly click on and look at. Important question, this is not a grant program. While we offer significant benefits to those ecosystems who join and become part of the nearly 70 other STEM learning ecosystems that are part of this community of practice, it is not a grant program at all. And that's, people need to be very, very clear about that. We do offer virtual coaching. We give you access to virtual technical assistance, and then we also make available to you additional assistance on a fee-for-service basis. Questions can be directed there, and we'll keep moving, Veronica. Please. There are some participation requirements, and you know, we of course touched on these before, but I think it's important to spend a minute or two outlining them again. We expect a lot from the ecosystems who become members of this grand community of practice. We expect you to participate wholly and fully We need to know who your leads are. We need you to disseminate information to your members when needed and when necessary. We expect that you'll engage with the virtual coaching and participate in webinars, in the community of practice convenings, in practice groups. We expect that you'll take full advantage of the resources that are available on the webinars and in the many other communications that we have with you. We also require that, I mentioned the ecosystem indicator tool. We also require that that is a tool with which you engage right away within the first 2 months of your participation as a member of the community of practice, and then again in the 10-month reporting period. And we do this and require these participation benchmarks for one basic reason. It works. We know from 4 years of hands-on, relevant, meaningful experience that these things work, that these tools help ecosystems become thriving and strong and vital members of this community of practice. We'll keep going. Okay, so now I'm going to again introduce my colleague, Veronica Gonzalez, who has a question or two for our ecosystem leads who have joined us today.
Great, thank you, Alyssa. And I do want to note that I see there are some questions that are coming up as we move along in the question box, so we encourage you to continue to ask questions as we move along, and we'll get to those in just a moment. But I am pleased to introduce, as Alyssa mentioned as well, Hetty Clark, as well as Stephanie Schwab. And perhaps we'll just start with Hetty there and just ask you a little bit to answer the first question for us. Have you found value as a member of the STEM Learning Ecosystem Community of Practice? And if you could offer a few brief examples. If you would like to reintroduce yourself and what ecosystem you're from, as well as your cohort, that would be great.
Sure, that's great. I'm Hetty Clark, and I'm in STEM Southeastern North Carolina. We call it CNEC for short. And I'm cohort 4, so we're the newest cohort. We were accepted last late spring or early summer. And we have definitely found value as a member. I'd say the most helpful thing that we did was something that we actually had to pay a little bit of money for, but the experience was invaluable. We had Alyssa come to represent TIES and speak to our group of partners and sort of help us think through who we wanted to be and how we wanted to work together. It was called a TIES Design Studio, and left with it with some things that we wanted to work towards. And that was great in terms of getting everybody in there together and letting everybody let it be a collaborative process where everybody had a voice and we could come to some sort of common agreement. So that was by far the most valuable thing that we've done. I would say the other thing, we went to our first convening in California in November, and that was helpful for a couple of different things. One was just team building for our own internal team to get to spend some time together in a different location, talking about things that everybody was passionate about. And then also to feel the passion in the room from all of the other ecosystems there and get a little bit of mentoring and ideas about where we could go in the future.
Great, thank you. And so Stephanie, I'm going to ask you perhaps the same question, if you could introduce yourself as well and what ecosystem you're from, and the value that you've found thus far as being a part of the community of practice, and just a few brief examples. Thank you again, Hetty.
Hi, this is Stephanie Schwab. I'm with the PA Seed ecosystem. We are in southeastern Pennsylvania. I am one of the ecosystem leads. There are 4 of us that kind of operate as our executive director, and we work together to fulfill that role as the lead for our ecosystem. I think all of the things that Hetty said, I would second as well. I also find that once you start to make those connections out at the community of practice, whether You all go, however many people you can send, there's a lot of connections that you can make, and everyone is so willing to have follow-up conversations with you and answer questions that you may have. And it's really great having so many levels of cohorts that are there, from those who have been doing this a couple of years to those who are just getting started. And everybody lends such a different perspective, but yet are dealing with a lot of the same issues. So I would say the convening is very helpful. The design studios helped our ecosystem as well to be able to come up with our design principles and aspiration statement and help us come together as a whole. I don't think there's other examples beyond what Hetty provided. I would just second them as having been really great supports for us in trying to drive our ecosystem forward.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And I'm actually going to stay with you for this next question, if that's all right.
Sure.
Especially because you are one of 4 leads. Can you tell us what the trickiest part of the application process was for your team? And can you offer any advice for the folks on the phone?
Sure. I think just to provide a little bit of background, we are 4 counties that came together to form this ecosystem, and each of us had areas of strength that we were bringing to the table, whether it was working with out-of-school programs more, or some who are working more closely with business and industry. And all of us have direct ties to K-12 education. So within each of our counties, there was strong STEM connections and experiences that were already happening. And the trickiest part for us was trying to mesh all of that together into one application to show all of the different connections that we had. So we weren't as concerned about trying to show what each of us did, but really trying to show how between each of us, we were hitting all of those necessary components, and that we all didn't have to be doing all of those connections, but that as a whole, if we looked at our entire region, we were able to show that we had connections with out-of-school programs, and we have connections with business and industry, and we have connections with our colleges and universities. So I would say if you're, as a region, you really want to step back and take a look at that full picture. It's not that the lead applicant has to be the one making all of the connections with all of the stakeholder groups. I think you look to see what all of your stakeholder groups are bringing to the table and try and get that together to complete your application.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And Hetty, how about we ask you that same question? What was the trickiest part of the application for your ecosystem? And is there any advice you could offer our participants on the webinar?
Sure, happy to field that one too. So a little background about us. We have 2 leads. I'm a co-lead, and we're based out of the University of North Carolina in Wilmington. And we're working with 13 counties in southeastern North Carolina. So we started working from points of strength, sort of as Stephanie explained. We went within our university and said, who in the College of Education primarily is already working with, the schools and the partner agencies, and can you reach out to those agencies and tell them what we're doing here and see if you can get their support and get their interest. And then that's how we primarily went about getting everybody up involved, because although we had those relationships, we haven't formally pulled everybody together and given it a name and called ourselves an ecosystem. And we weren't really big on, although it was collaborative, it really wasn't sharing a voice for how you wanted to work together. It was more of programs. We have this program, can you help us? Or, do you want to do this program? And so my advice, again, is similar to Stephanie. Start from your points of strength and then go out there. As with everything, start earlier than you think you need to. Sometimes it's, you have people that are excited and interested, but it takes them a while if you want them to write a letter. And the other thing that I think really helped us is we wrote up like a 1-pager about what we were thinking here. We sort of summarized what the ecosystem was. We talked about what people could get out of it, what kind of commitment we thought would be needed, all preliminary as we were putting it together as we go. But that helped us all to sort of be on the same page when we were out talking to people. So I think that's all I have to say on that.
Great, thank you. That's wonderful. This is Alyssa again, and I think I'm going to try to group a couple of our questions together, and whoever feels most passionately about it, talk to us a little bit about who worked on your application process and how much time did you invest in it? Stephanie or
Hetty,
Hetty?
I can say that. Are we good? Okay, this is Hetty.
Yeah.
I would say that Sue, the other co-lead, and I did most of the pulling together of everything, but we sort of had, you know, other people out there talking to partners and gathering the information, and then we were the ones who pulled it all together. And I would say one other tip that I found helpful, I went in and copied all the questions out of the application so that we could work on it all like in a Word document that we could pass around and edit. And so we weren't, you know, coming up from scratch as we were entering it into the online system. So that was helpful. That's how we handled the actual technical aspect of getting it in. Stephanie?
I would say the 4 leads, we all worked on it, and we tried to think about what each of us was bringing to the table. So each of the 4 leads works in an intermediate unit, which is like an educational service agency. And so we all kind of worked on it from our own perspectives. And then we had a lot of conversations then about how we were going to compile it all together. So there was definitely collaboration between the 4 of us, and we did the same thing and pulled it out and put it into a Google Doc so that we could all work on it and add our thoughts. And then when it came time, there was just one person then that sat down and read through it all and tried to really pull it together as well. I think it's really important to talk to as many of your stakeholders as you can and get their input in the application process as well, so that they understand what it is that you're applying for, because you're going to want all of their support as you continue to move forward with your ecosystem as well. So as open as you can be and as many conversations that time allows you to have, I would do that with your stakeholders as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you. And final question is, did you feel that you were ready to join the SLE-COP? Who wants to go first on that one?
I can go first this time. It's Stephanie. We were and we weren't, because we were still trying to understand what it was joining the national STEM ecosystem. So we had been doing the work but didn't realize what we were doing. And so until we got a better handle on what was actually entailed with being part of the ecosystem, we weren't quite sure if we were ready. I think once we got there and got involved, we were learning along the way and felt like you don't have to feel that you're 100% ready to join. I think you just have to be comfortable in being unsure of what's coming and be ready to get a lot of supports from people, which is, I think, the benefit of the ecosystem. So if you're a little hesitant, I think that's okay, because there's a tremendous amount of support from the ecosystems in the community of practice who will be there to answer questions and help move you forward, that I wouldn't quite necessarily worry if you're not quite ready. And I'm thankful now for the new cohorts coming in that you get a bit of an orientation moving forward, because that was something that I think we were missing. So I think that will help the process even more for the new cohorts that are coming on.
Great. Thank you both so much. Go ahead, Veronica.
Sorry, Alyssa. So everyone, this is Veronica Gonzalez again. Super happy to be here with everybody. I think I failed to mention that when I was taking over the last time. But there are a few questions that have been coming in from all of you. And so I think now we'd like to shift gears a little bit and ask, you know, obviously us as staff members, but Stephanie and Hetty, please feel free to jump in here on some of these answers as well. I'm going to reframe maybe one of them slightly, but can we talk a little bit about the power of the ecosystem and collaboration? I think a lot of folks have questions around resources and sharing resources.
Sure.
So what is the benefit of being an ecosystem, and why would I want to sign up to share my resources with others, and what's the benefit of collaboration there?
Sure, sure. And I'll start, and we're fortunate today to have on the webinar Julie Stolzer, who is the director of our global work. And Veronica, if you could actually empower Julie to speak too. I'll start, and then maybe Julie wants to add a little bit more to this as well. That question is a very important one, and also
Yes.
is also a very common one. There is often a reluctance among some organizations to share resources. And the beauty of the ecosystem is that it brings together diverse partners. The first step that everyone needs to do is to identify, and we talked about this a little bit on the prior webinar, identify their enlightened self-interest. So that it all gets out there on the table, so that you're all in the same room, you get shared goals, shared aspirations, everyone knows where everyone is coming from. And then we're united by the shared belief that I think we all have, is that STEM is the pathway for improving students' lives and making communities better. And we know that that learning doesn't happen in silos, so you kind of get over it. And you recognize that if you're actually going to move the needle for the students that you serve and the communities where you live and work, that you've got to develop a collaborative mindset. That is absolutely at the heart of all of this. Julie, want to add any other additional comments there?
Thanks, Alyssa. You know, I think one of the interesting things we've heard from people is this notion that if they're reluctant to share information or collaborate, it's because they consider some of their stakeholders within their community competitors, right? Because they're competing for the same grants. Typically, it's about competing for grant funds or philanthropic funding. And all we can tell you from our experience is that what we see happen in the ecosystem communities is when communities engage a really diverse cross-sector collaborative community, we see the net flow of funds into supporting the work of the community increases. It doesn't decrease. So, you know, looking over from the 30,000 foot level at the first couple of years, first couple of cohorts, one of the things we observed was in those communities that really deeply collaborated, and some of those collaborations were difficult and unusual and kind of hard, they were generally rewarded. And the best evidence of that, I think, is to look at the NSF Includes. To any of you on the call who are familiar in the US with the NSF Includes grant program over the last 3 years, they have been very intentional and have actually engaged with the STEM learning ecosystem to talk about ensuring that we're working with NSF Includes, and they've probably awarded, I don't know, maybe a dozen of the NSF Includes grants have come to applications that were from STEM learning ecosystems because they demonstrate this ability to really deeply partner and collaborate. And I think the feedback we also get from funders is they take a sense of confidence in funding organizations that they know are collaborating, because they typically see those as stronger investments on their part when there's multiple stakeholders working together towards a common goal. So if that's a fear that you are getting some pushback from some potential collaborators on, I would share that data set with them, because that to me is that's the demonstration of the why, because we're stronger, better, more effective, more impactful when we work together.
I'm wondering if Hetty and Stephanie thank you, Julie, that was awesome. If Stephanie and Hetty have any additional thoughts to add here from your own personal experiences with that.
This is Hetty, and I know that that's come up as a concern from somebody in our group, because they feel like some of it's their own intellectual property. And what I think they really end up doing is just doing something that's similar that they would feel comfortable sharing, but maybe it's not every page of every lesson that they come up with or something like that. And I would just say, being on the other end and being able to go and hear what people are doing is so immensely helpful, that I hope that we all are able to think about sort of the greater good and putting it out there, so that we can all learn from each other.
Thank you, Hetty. Stephanie, anything to add?
I would just agree with what Hetty said. And Julie, it is a concern at times with some. I think for us, it was really powerful when we stuck to what our aspiration statement and design principles were and trying to let everyone see this is what we're all working towards. And if we just keep that in mind, that it's about that collective work and collaboration that's going to actually help us get there, and that we are more powerful together than we are trying to do something on our own.
Great, thank you. Veronica?
Yeah, so the next question is from a K through 12 science curriculum specialist. Wants to know a little bit about to what extent has your ecosystem influenced the school, and in what way? It sounds like that's directed towards Hetty and Stephanie, maybe.
Yeah.
And Alyssa and Julie, I'm sure you guys can offer some examples from the field.
Let's give Hetty and Stephanie first crack here, if you guys want to.
Can you repeat that question again? I missed pieces of it. I'm not sure if it was breaking up or not.
To what extent has your ecosystem influenced the school or school district in your ecosystem, and in what way?
Okay, I'll start. So as an educational service agency and working with other educational service agencies in our region, we support 67 school districts. And so as we were trying to build our leadership council, we wanted representation from multiple school districts within our region, but yet couldn't have all of them. So we work with our school districts, and as we run events and things that we do, they're open to all of our school districts. I'm not sure where that question's actually driving at more. Maybe Hetty has a better answer.
I don't have a better answer. I can say that we have a lot of school district partners, way more school district and school partners than we do, for instance, business and industry. Part of that is because of the natural connections we had, and part of that is the sort of area that we're in doesn't have a lot of big businesses. It's more small, more local businesses. And I can say that we're still getting up and running to figure out how we can impact them, but I can tell you that they're invested and that they're interested. When I send out newsletters or updates, it's the school people I'm hearing back from. I'm super excited. We've been talking about who's going to go to the convening in April, and we were asking partners who were interested, and I'm so excited that one of our partners from a school system wanted to go, and I just got an email from her while we were on here now saying how just excited she is. And she's looking forward to the opportunity, I think, to go and hear what other people are doing, maybe programming-wise, that she can take back. And then our hope is that then she can sort of have a bigger session for the rest of our school district people who couldn't go and sort of share the information she learned there.
I can offer you guys a real-time example of something that's happening in Northeast Ohio right now. There is a desire among several ecosystem partners, business and industry, science centers, museums, after school, to see robotics have a bigger presence throughout the region and with students. And so there is an effort right now just taking shape to put a robot in every fourth or fifth grader's hands throughout the public schools in Cleveland as a test, and then it would be developed throughout the region. So that's just one of many programmatic examples that we could spend the rest of our time together trotting out. There are just so many infinite ways that ecosystem work has had direct influence on K-12.
I can offer one more example as well, Alyssa, if it's helpful. This is Veronica. Speaking with I know other school systems have done this as well, but most recently meeting with one school district that is the lead actually of the ecosystem there in southern New Jersey. They are really having some deep conversations around what integrative curriculum looks like across disciplines, as well as thinking about professional development differently and ties to business and industry that way. I know we have some ecosystems that have done some teacher externship work, and I know Julie can speak to this as well with professional development for teachers in the workplace, and how that translates back into real world application of the curriculum and learning in the classroom, you know, and thinking through what the school day looks like and the standards and the curriculum and what needs to be done in a very different way as new partners are added to the table. So I hope that that's enough of an answer to that question around influencing, you know, the school system and what's happening there through an ecosystem perspective.
Before we move on to another question, I just wanted to go back to the earlier funding question and to offer a little bit more there. Through our 4 years of working with ecosystems, we've learned some things, quite a lot actually. And one of the things that we've learned is that you do need anchor funding. And probably an anchor institution, and that's pretty critical. Ecosystems, you know, need in-kind support, but they also need, you know, a steady stream of funding, ideally from multiple sources. But it is important to have an anchor funder. Okay, sorry, Veronica.
No problem. So there's a couple maybe technical or logistic questions that I'll ask, and I'll combine them for you, Alyssa. Is there a letter of support form letter? I think that we're asking perhaps for a template for that letter of support.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
Before you continue on, if you could activate, sorry, Veronica, if you could do 10,000 things at once here. Can you activate Michelle so that she can help chime in on some of these answers as well?
Yes, Alyssa,
Michelle.
This is Michelle Freeman. I am here.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
You want me to jump in for this question?
Yes, please.
The letters of support, we encourage you to create your own language. We actually do not provide a template. This is your opportunity to build new relationships, to certainly cultivate existing relationships. So we do provide some information about who to put or who you can address the letter to. That would be Gerald Solomon and Ron Ottinger, and that information is in the application packet. But we do encourage you to create your own letters of support.
Thank you, Michelle. And this one also may be in your bucket as well. You may have already answered it. Is there a excuse me? Is there a one-pager and/or marketing materials on the benefit of a STEM ecosystem?
Yeah. So one of the many services that we offer are resources that you can find on the website, including a communications toolkit that's constantly improving and changing. But that is definitely up there, and we can help you find that. If you want to shoot one of us an email offline, we'll direct you to that on the website if you can't locate it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, whoever asked this question, if you are on the website, you can go to the apply section, and there's a sub menu, why apply, and there's actually a whole page that lists out the participation benefits, which Alyssa just mentioned. And so there's an infographic there, but it lists out the benefits that we've outlined. It looks like someone's navigating. If you go to About, under Apply, go ahead and click Apply, or go ahead and click Why Apply. The benefits are listed out there, and it talks about the convenings, the internal community website, the peer-developed resources, and the webinars that Alyssa and Veronica and both Stephanie and Hetty and Julie have talked about.
Great, thank you, Michelle. So the next question is, what additional services or fee are available, and what are the costs?
Sure. So we offer something that we call TIES Field Managers. And we offer, regular virtual coaching for communities that are accepted to be part of the community of practice. In addition, we offer, and Hetty and Stephanie both mentioned it, on a reduced fee for service basis design work to communities where, we have a series of design studios that we can do with you to help everything from, your initial organization, making sure that you've got people aligned around shared common goals and a shared vision, to governance, to sustainability. And the fees for those honestly really range. A good deal based on geography of where you are and the travel costs associated with it and so forth. We're happy to talk to you specifically about that, and feel free to reach out to me if that can be helpful. I do want to stress, before we move on to another question, I do want to stress, and Michelle can tell us exactly what number we're at right now, but we have had incredible interest from communities that want to join the community of practice. And we know for sure, again, and I said this before, but I want to stress it again, that we won't be able to accept everyone who has applied. And that's not necessarily a reflection even on your level of readiness. We just have limited capacity right now, and we'll encourage you to reapply in the fall if you're not accepted as part of this Cohort 5. And I think we've mentioned this on the first webinar. This is a change for us. We used to only admit communities once a year. We've gone to twice a year because there's so much demand. All right, sorry, Veronica, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm going to ask one more logistic question, and then we may have one or two more as we're sort of winding down on time here. With the notification of acceptance into the cohort in late March and orientation happening in New Orleans early April, is it an issue for those accepted if they cannot attend the convening? Our district requires at least 30 days notice for travel.
Boy, I'm going to defer to my colleagues on that. Julie, Michelle?
I think Hetty and Stephanie said it best. The convenings are a really important part of building the community of practice. There'll be another one in the fall that you can come to, and if you can't come, I would say work hard to designate somebody who you think could come. I'm not sure about, it doesn't, you don't have to be the one, but certainly somebody, I would think, would have to come to the first one.
Right. Michelle. Okay, great. Michelle, anything else?
Yeah, I would just add that we are going to try and notify folks as early as possible in March, because we know that there are restrictions, particularly around travel for some of our members. So we are trying our best. We have an aggressive timeline. But just to reiterate what Julie said, this is really an opportunity for you, if you are the lead, to build out your team and help identify additional members, or perhaps there are emerging partners or emerging leaders in your ecosystem. You are provided 2 spots to attend, so we highly encourage you to reach out to your partners if you are unable to make it. Ideally, you would be the one that would attend, but it would be great, obviously, for you to fill those 2 slots, and then also look at other additional community members to attend as part of your ecosystem.
Thank you both. We've got about a minute left, and in that minute, I wanted to again reiterate that we are looking for ecosystems who can demonstrate their readiness to join this community of practice and to meet the expectations and to make contributions and to make the most of their participation in this community of practice. Additionally, housekeeping issues, again, this webinar was recorded, so you're certainly free to watch it again and again and again, or listen to it again and again and again. And additionally, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us with questions that you may have as you work through the application process. So it's been delightful to talk to you. I again wanted to thank Hetty and Stephanie and Julie and Michelle and Veronica, and there's so many others who I didn't mention who make this community of practice such a successful venture.
Alyssa, I think Hetty wanted to mention one quick thing.
Oh, sure.
I do. And thank you for that. I'm glad you got my message. I just wanted to say, I remember being on this call as we were applying, and somebody said something that stuck with us, and we're still repeating it. So I just wanted to share what that was. Somebody said, both the application process and starting your ecosystem feel like you're building a car while you're driving it. And I would say that that's absolutely true. You're learning as you go, and you're figuring it out as you go, but it's so worth it. So I just wanted to share that because it really did stick with us.
That's excellent. Okay. Talk to all of you very soon. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.